What is up? What is good? What is happening? It's the Coast to Coast podcast here on InsideCarolina.com, brought to you by Johnny T-Shirt. All right, glad you guys are here. Thanks for being a part of the show. We love bringing it to you. We love you being a part of the IC family. Latest edition of the Coast to Coast podcast goes now. I am Joey Powell, simply your host. The two guys that are with me are the two guys you came to hear, Sherrell McMillan, Sean Moran. Sean, how are you on the West Coast?
Doing well.
Sherrell, how are you on the East Coast?
Good. Excited to talk a little Carolina and with our special guest as well.
Special guest, that's right. We'll tease that and we'll kind of hit you guys up midway through the episode and let you know who's coming. But we're excited to talk to him. I think the young man will bring a lot to the show. But boys, two games, two North Carolina wins. Sherrell, you've said it before. These shows are always more fun to do when North Carolina has something positive to talk about. They gave us that this week, right? 72-64 win at home over Boston College, and then an 80-69 win over NC State. If you look at the stats, I think the magic number against NC State is 80, because for whatever reason they seem to get to 80 and win when they play the Wolfpack. The BC game, I think, is one of those. And Sherrell, you said it very eloquently in the post game with Tommy Ashley right after that one. That's one of those where you burn the tape and nobody will remember anything about it afterwards. You know, it was a win. You did what you were supposed to do. It wasn't pretty. You move on. But after these two wins, listening to Hubert Davis in his post game, he talked about things where he felt like this team was improving. Someone asked him, where they are in the season, and he kind of reframed it and said, "Hey, I'd rather look at it as, are we improving?" And he thinks the Tar Heels are. So, Sherrell, I'm going to come to you. What has this team improved upon?
I think defensively they're playing better. I don't think they're great or maybe not even good by any stretch just yet, but I think they're better than they were, which is saying something. And um, if you want to draw parallels to last year, which people were going to do, it was around this time that the defense started to improve. It wasn't a rocket ship improvement where they went from 97th in Gimbom to 10th in Gimbom in 2 games.
What
It
would that
was
even look
more,
like?
yeah, you have to hold somebody like 2 points, I guess. It was more of 97 to 65 to 58 to 43, on and on and on until they got into the top 20. The hope, I think, from Hero Davis is that you see that kind of defensive improvement. But I think that's where I would start because offensively, we said this last year, and there were times where it was a struggle, but they seem to be able to score 80 points, pretty normally. I think they're averaging right around that. So you don't worry so much about the offense in the aggregate that they're going to end up with 80 points. You might worry how they get there. So I think now it's just really about defense, and they're going to be playing some better offensive teams here in the next month. So I think defense is where they've shown some improvement. Still a long way to go, but they've definitely shown some improvement.
Yeah, again, Hubert Davis's post-game comments after the game against NC State said that the guys made a mistake by putting on tape that they could play better defensively. So now he can go back to them and see, you can do this. Sean, ask you the same question. What do you feel like this team has improved upon, be it recently or over the course of 2.5 months?
Well, I think one thing that we talked offensively, and they have been just dropping just little by little in Ken Palm to, I think, where they're now number 16 in the country. And they have two players playing really at an all-American level with Armando, who's been doing it since he returned after the Virginia Tech game, and RJ Davis, who's really been doing it since the start of 2023. So I think from an individual perspective, you have two guys playing at such a high level, and that obviously helps things. For the BC game, things got pretty dicey in a game that was a little sluggish, and they thought that, I think everybody thought, hey, this is going to be a cakewalk, and Armando goes out for several minutes in the second half, and all of a sudden now it's down to 1 point, and they couldn't score. And even at the beginning of the NC State game, I thought they had an opportunity to jump on them early, and outside of the first basket, they really struggled that first 4 or 5 minutes. So I think on both sides of the ball, there's still a lot of improvement. I think that can come, as Pete Nance is further integrated into the offense. I think he's still, trying to find his way a little bit. And then obviously Caleb Love, which I'm sure we'll touch on. But I think it's really the two individual players playing like all Americans, and you're getting other spot minutes, which I think need to definitely increase as we go into a harder stretch of the season.
You mentioned Pete Nance. I think a lot of folks probably did not have Pete Nance baptizing somebody on their bingo card for the NC State game, but he absolutely did and showed some aggression that I don't think folks have seen, but definitely that Hubert Davis and staff have been asking him for. Sean, I want to ask you, the North Carolina bench, when we did this episode last week, had been starting to provide some really positive things, not just statistically, but cohesion, a little more steadiness when they were asked and called upon during the games. Have not done as much this, at least against NC State, and weren't great against Boston College. I know Puff Johnson was out against NC State as he's dealing with some knee issues. Sean, is that something to be concerned about, or do you think it's probably just the fact that you know Puff is hurt and it kind of throws things off a little bit?
It's a great question. We've talked so much about developing a bench and finding roles, but at the end of the day, when it gets, into whether it's next week or March, Heber Davis is not going to look to make a lot of substitutions unless he's forced to in the second half. But at the same time, you never know. Armando's been banged up. There have been injuries, so you need to, the bench needs to be ready to go when they are. And I think it's such the margin of there's such a small margin. Dontrez Styles goes in pretty early yesterday, and if that first layup goes down for him, maybe that's a little bit of a different story in terms of him getting some minutes. Seth Trimble can be great defensively. I think we thought the Wake Forest game was going to be his turning point offensively, but we still haven't seen really what he's capable of. DeMarco Dunn was really the one player that did get playing time, and I think we've seen that improvement, but it's really going to come down to the bench playing well in the spot minutes, providing a lift. I think Puff needs to be healthy. He's the one guy on the bench I feel most comfortable with in terms of inserting him in a starting role and getting some minutes. But DeMarco Dunn's going to need to play at a high level, and ideally one out of Seth Trimble, Jalen Washington, Dontrez, even Tyler Nickel, when they get their minutes, they can come in and be productive. So I think I don't know if it's something to worry about, but at the end of the day, Hubert's going to have a very thin bench in the second half, no matter what's happening going forward. So, when those one or two players do get their chances of just being productive.
Sherrell, when we haven't seen as much productivity from these guys, is it? Yeah, I'm going to ask you to speculate here, and I know we generally don't do that, but what do you think's happening with those guys? Is it just that the season's starting to get long for them? Is it the fact that the competition is becoming a little more stiff? Is the fact that the games are starting to have a little more gravitas? What do you think's going on with the freshmen right now?
Yeah, I think they probably are getting close to hitting a little bit of a wall. They are used to playing from usually the last weekend Thanksgiving to early middle February, something like that. But as far fewer games, it's much less physical. But I think the whole rotation thing, I think Hubert Davis played subs out of necessity when he had to, and that's what we thought was a bench being developed. Whereas more so, he didn't have a choice. I mean, if you look at Notre Dame, Seth Trimble played a lot because Pete Nance was hurt, and the best option was to go with the kind of three-guard lineup. Same thing against Wake Forest. Notre Dame, same situation. I think Nance played against Wake Forest. Excuse me. Notre Dame is when I think he got hurt and missed that game, so they went to the three-guard lineup against Virginia. Baycott gets injured in the first minute or so, and Nance isn't there, so you really don't have a choice but to play Washington and let him develop some. So I don't know if it's as much the bench was getting developed and is not playing anymore as they played when they were needed out of necessity, and now they're not needed as much. And again, we still don't really know exactly how Hubert Davis is going to play things moving forward. We think we know. We have a year and a half sample, but it could be a situation next year where he has more faith and more trust in guys, 8 through 13 off the bench, whereas this year it's pretty much 1 through 6.5, I would say, depending upon what game it is, which is the same as it was last year. So that's my kind of read on the bench situation, is that yeah, you can develop a bench in practice, but I feel like he plays a bench out of necessity, not out of trying to rest starters or trying to gain momentum for the second half. He plays them when he kind of has to, so far is what I've seen.
And again, we've talked about it here before. He's very much a field-driven coach. It's, game to game, situation to situation, opponent to opponent. And then when you throw in the fact that the team has not had everyone healthy except for one game this year, I think that says a lot. Sherrell, I want to ask you, watching the NC State game, you mentioned earlier in the podcast that it seems that North Carolina may be improving a little bit on defense. Was the State game their best defensive performance? And I want to caveat that with when Quavion Smith went out, obviously that changes things for how NC State's going to run their offense. But even in the first half, you could see they were making some things difficult for the Wolfpack, even while North Carolina was not scoring quite a bit. So, in your opinion, with those caveats in place, was that the best that the defense has played thus far?
Maybe consistently, maybe. There was a stretch there where State was getting a lot of open looks. I think what they did better, I would say, in this game than maybe they've done in the past is not let is the kind of shots they were allowing. So I think in against State, you're fine, even though he had a great game. You're fine if it takes DJ Burns backing you down and making left-handed hooks. You're fine if he does that 20 times. Like I think that's an acceptable way to lose the game because you don't expect him to be able to continue to do it. I think the issue was when he started doing that and they double teamed, then Morel, is it Morel or Marcel?
Marcel.
Marcel and
yeah,
Joyner. Yeah.
yeah, Marcel, the Virginia transfer, he hit 2 threes on I think on consecutive possessions once they started doubling. So I think they did a good job of limiting State's best players from taking the shots that they like. Smith had started to get going early in the second half and then kind of got off track from there. Joyner hit a couple of pull-ups, but there was nothing where you're like, oh, this is a danger zone outside of those couple Marcel threes. So maybe it wasn't the best defensive performance overall, but I think it was one of the best performances in limiting what the opponent wanted to do, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, Sean, I want to go there too. I absolutely almost lost my lunch when they double teamed DJ Burns on consecutive possessions because I hated the strategy involved, and then the results were even worse, right? If DJ Burns is getting shots, to Sherrell's point, you take those 4 as opposed to the 6 that you're going to give when you can't recover off the double team. Did you feel the same way, or did you feel like maybe that was an advantage to at least stop the Burns onslaught for that, minute and a half or whatever it was in the first half?
Yeah, well, I mean, luckily in the second half, Burns kind of stopped himself because it felt he could get pretty much whatever he wanted if he was going to be set on backing down, whether it was Baycott or Nance in the post. And he settled for a few, I think he'd hit a few in a row, settled for a jump shot, took some bad shots. So he almost stopped himself in the first half. I could see why they wanted to double team. And initially it was nice because they didn't double team like in the Indiana game, from the same side, and they were bringing somebody over. But all of a sudden they were so out of sorts, and NC State was really moving the ball very, very crisply. And all of a sudden it's finding Marcel and it's finding the bottom of the net. So they obviously made in the second half a choice. Hey, we're going to play him straight up. And at times I was kind of hoping they were going to double team him, but they kept with it. Burns started forcing some shots. NC State, well, I don't think either team hit a 3-pointer in the second half, so they didn't have to worry about that when they weren't leaving him. But it was it was interesting just having somebody of that size create that mismatch in the post. Usually, we're used to seeing Armando create that mismatch, but I think they handled it well, and luckily DJ started settling for some 10 footers.
And the other thing, Joey, too, I think it's almost as much about knowing the personnel. Like you can double team, but the only person on State who's shooting a decent percentage from 3 with a good amount of attempts is Marcel.
Yeah.
So if you double, you have to make sure that you don't double away from him or whoever off of him or whoever has him doesn't double. That can't be the person who doubles, or that can't be the person who gets caught in recovery. They have to stick with that man. So, the strategy I think was probably fine. It was just a little bit of the execution as far as knowing personnel and knowing who can shoot and maybe who has shot the best this season.
Hey, and I always say this, when people are losing their mind and getting mad about North Carolina, the game's not played in a vacuum. And I think right there, you have to tip your hat to NC State for recognizing the double and moving the ball to get it to Marcel. They did it twice. And that's just that takes a lot on the offense too, to recognize, okay, this is what they're doing. Let's exploit their weakness in recovery. and get our guy a clean look. All right, Sherrell, I know you're waiting for this. Let me hear your stat, your league only stat that you want to share with us.
Yeah, this is a fixture of the Coast to Coast podcast dating back to last year when we thought North Carolina was terrible defensively, and
Hootie.
after each game, we would go back and look at the ACC conference only defensive efficiency, and they'd be in the top 5. And granted, they haven't played a great schedule, so normal caveats apply. They played the 13th strongest schedule in the ACC so far, according to KenPom. But all those caveats aside, they are number 3 behind Clemson and Virginia in conference only defense. And we're almost Tuesday will be halfway through conference play. So that's not an insignificant number. Obviously, there's better offenses to play, but
Yeah.
It's not insignificant. It says something that they are being at least competent, and the teams that they're supposed to keep from scoring a lot, they're keeping them from doing that. Now, also, I'll add huge caveat: they went 2 games where they allowed 1-3, so that's probably a big part of that as well.
That does make a little bit of a difference and will skew your stats. But as you said, this next stretch of 7 games or so is going to tell a lot about this squad and whether they've actually rallied and galvanized and are starting to turn the corner or have turned the corner will be really easy to recognize. It's almost as easy to recognize as a Johnny T-shirt read, right? Because you've got all of this data out there, that jumps off a box score and a stat sheet at you, just like all of the good deals and all of the pricing and all of the amazing array of options for purchasing off the Johnny T-shirt website, right? They're basically one and the same. Johnny T-shirt has been sponsoring this show and Inside Carolina content in general for a long time. We're big fans of theirs. Locally owned and operated, alumni owned and operated. They love North Carolina fans just as we do. We want you to show them some love. Hit them up. If you need jerseys, we got, like Sherrell said, we got just, a dozen, give or take a handful of conference games left in the season. If you need a jersey to wear to the Smith Center or to wear to your watch party or to wear to your rival neighbor's house just to, run off at the mouth to them, go to Johnny T-shirt and get that jersey. Men's jerseys, women's jerseys. The women are on a tear right now. They're playing Georgia Tech as we record this. Go get your jerseys from Johnny T-shirt. Premium subscribers know you get the extra 10% off the top. Use it. Use Johnny T-shirt. Enhance your wardrobe. Expand your gear. Be thankful. We appreciate you doing it, and so do they. All right, take a quick break. We're going to let the national guys run some ads, and when we come back, we've got a special guest. Hit me! James Brown. Not the Godfather of Soul. That would be really weird. But James Brown, the recent North Carolina commit, will be joining us, and we will talk to him about any and everything and see where the conversation takes us. We're happy to have him. We'll be right back after this break. Thanks for being a part of this edition of the Coast to Coast podcast on InsideCarolina.com. All right, we're back. Coast to Coast podcast, latest edition here on Inside Carolina. We love doing these. And shout out to the magic of Sherrell and, prospects just being good kids and being willing to talk to us. But we're going to talk with James Brown, one of the latest commitments to Hubert Davis and his staff at North Carolina. James, we appreciate you joining us, man, from just outside Chicago. How you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thank you for having me. I appreciate you guys taking the time to talk with me.
Yeah, man. Anytime we can kind of liven this show up with some youth and some vigor, we're going to absolutely do it. So we're gonna kind of roundtable some questions with you here. Again, we just want to hear more about James the guy. We've talked about James the player up and down, and we've done all the analysis, but I think our listeners and our viewers want to hear from JB the guy. So let's get rolling. James, first thing I want to ask you, your words, your gut instinct. Why North Carolina?
I'd say why North Carolina because of the initial relationship that I was able to build with Coach Davis and Coach May. And, it all started when I first talked to Coach Davis when I was at the USA training camp over the summer in Colorado. And just from then, I could tell he was a extremely genuine person and a great guy. And, he seemed like he really cared for what he does and, for his players. And just from then, being able to build on that relationship is something that really attracted me to North Carolina. And then also something that I told Sherrell was, North Carolina, the brand and, the basketball and just outside of basketball, just it being a great school. The opportunities that it could provide for me on and off the court are endless.
So what I hear a young man that's had some media training because he reframed the question as soon as I asked it. And I respect the hell out of that. I'll be honest, JB. Sherrell, go ahead, man.
No, I wanted to follow up with that. When did you know, like in your heart of hearts, that Carolina is where you wanted to go?
Um, I had a feeling that I really liked North Carolina after the visit. Just being able to be down there and the place and the campus in Chapel Hill is so special. So after that, that was definitely something that stood out from my other visits. But the communication since I took my visit to North Carolina with some colleges, it might have dropped off a little bit, or with some, they kind of talked to me, but it seemed like they were, it kind of something that not necessarily changed a little bit, but they might have, like, after they got my visit out of the way, might have started prioritizing other people, stuff like that. But with Carolina, it picked up. So after that, it was just like maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month after I took my visit, I was kind of like, man, like North Carolina, that's the school that I want to go to. And then after that, it was kind of like just talking with my parents and, kind of like, how do we want to go about this, talking to Coach Davis, kind of that sort of thing. So I would probably say a couple months after I took my visit.
So I don't think this made it into the first person story you wrote for Inside Carolina, which was really good, by the way. But tell me, how did it happen the day you committed? I think we talked about it at some point, but it did get included in any of the coverage. Like you guys are riding home in the car and you call Coach Davis, and what happens from there?
So me and my dad were in the car, and we called Coach Davis. My dad was like, man, we appreciate you for coming up to the game versus Whitney Young. Kind of just wanted to know what he thought about the game. Coach Davis gave his honest feedback. Thought I played pretty well. A couple things that he wanted to tweak about my performance. So I appreciated the criticism. And then, kind of just told him from there. He was like, man, North Carolina's been a school that, we've been looking at really closely, and, we feel like it would be the best place for me. And then we feel like Coach Davis would be the best coach for me to coach me at the next level. He just, after we kind of told him, he just kept talking about how excited he was and how thorough he was. And, it was really a great moment for everybody in the car and on the call. But, we kind of just told him. And then after that, we kind of tried to find a date when we wanted to announce and how we wanted to announce. And he said that he was going to talk to the media people at North Carolina and kind of figure out how we wanted to go about everything.
When Coach Davis first started talking to you, had there been any prior indication of UNC interest prior to you being in Colorado Springs? And just in terms of UNC obviously being from the Midwest, were there any players that you kind of associated with North Carolina when you first started talking to them?
Not any prior. I hadn't talked to anybody from North Carolina prior to going to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
But being from the Midwest, I guess the first person that comes to mind when I would think of North Carolina is kind of Bobby Frazier. Him being a Chicago guy, and then also not playing against him, but him coaching against me my freshman and sophomore year when he was the head coach at Brother Rice. That was kind of the first person that I kind of associated with North Carolina. And then, I know Tyler Hansborough played with the Indiana Pacers. So, I don't know if he's from the Midwest or not. But, just kind of associated with him playing with the Midwest team in the NBA. I kind of associated those two together as well. And then Coach May, now knowing that he's from Indiana too. So.
Hey man, look. I may or may not have texted Bobby Frazier to ask him about you. Just saying, just putting that out there. And he was very, very familiar with your game and the fact that they could never beat you guys. That was, I believe, that was something that Bobby shared with us. But yeah, there is a long lineage from Montrose to May to Hansborough being from Missouri, and now Jalen Washington on the roster. So you're jumping into a really good pipeline of players coming from that Midwest area. So I want to ask, what have things been like since you committed? How have things changed? Has it gotten a weight off your shoulders? You always hear about prospects saying that things are so much easier to focus now when you make that commitment and get that over with. I'd like to ask you, what's different now since you've made your commitment?
One thing that I would say that's been different is it definitely does provide some sort of relief knowing that you're locked in with the school. You don't have to worry about talking to different coaches and stuff like that. You know who you're locked in with, you know where you want to go. You're basically just focusing on getting better and preparing yourself for that next level. Obviously, one goal that me and my high school want to do is win a state championship. So I feel like ever since committing to North Carolina, I've definitely been able to be a better teammate, and kind of help provide for the team in ways that I couldn't. It being a better leader and things like that. But one thing that's definitely been different is just the amount of people that walk up to me. We go to different showcases, and the amount of different people I see in North Carolina jerseys or North Carolina T-shirts that are just like, man, congratulations, welcome, man. We're excited to watch you play. Just the whole North Carolina basketball family has been really embracing since I committed, and that's just something that I really really appreciate, especially being in Chicago, or we were in Quincy, Illinois this past weekend, or in Bass Pro Shops in Missouri. Just kind of seeing how people are just everywhere, and fans of North Carolina, and just being extremely welcoming to me and my family. That's something that's really stood out and been different.
One thing we hear from a lot of guys now, since Hubert Davis has been head coach, just about the family atmosphere at UNC. I mean, it's been a thing since before Hubert, but I think he's kind of enhanced it and definitely talks about it more. What was your experience with that when you were on campus, and then since you've been committed during the recruiting process, et cetera?
Yeah, it's very true. Coach Davis, and not just Coach Davis, but the whole staff and the whole kind of Carolina community is just has really kind of showed that family atmosphere. One of the things that stood out on my visit to North Carolina, kind of stepping away from Coach Davis, was just being able to hang out with Jalen Washington and Seth Trimble and Tyler Nickel. And I'm sure Coach Davis isn't going to be too happy when I say this, but just hanging out with them, we kind of stayed up. We were up, just kind of chilling in the dorms till about 5 a.m. I think that's when they finally drove me back to the Carolina Inn. But just the connection that I was able to build with them. And it wasn't a connection where it was like after I left my visit. I still talk to Jalen and Tyler and Seth, to this day, and kind of just ask them about, how things are going, what are they looking forward to. So, I would say that even before I was committed, they really kind of embraced me into their family. And so that family atmosphere is definitely real. And then with Coach Davis, you could just tell in the way that he coaches, and the passion that he coaches with. That was one thing that kind of excited me about him, was just that passion and that fire that he coached with. Even yesterday when I didn't watch the NC State game, but I listened to it on the radio, and just hearing about how the announcers, Coach Davis, is fired up. That's kind of something I hear every single game that I look at or that I watch. So just seeing that it just really shows how he cares in that family atmosphere.
From an on the court perspective, I know you've been busy playing a lot of both in Chicago as well as a lot of the tournaments you just mentioned, but how would you kind of describe your game from both the strengths and areas of improvement perspective? I think I got to watch you in Kansas City over the summer a little bit, in some of the Nike EYBL, but even watching videos before that, I think the thing that jumps out is your ability to finish around the basket with both hands,
Yep.
and then you're stepping out and hitting, shooting free throws and hitting jump shots with your right hand, but you almost prefer to shoot, closer in with your left hand. And I've read you're a lefty, but so explain the whole left-handed, right-handed situation, as well as how you would describe your game right now.
So the left-handed, right-hand situation. So I'm naturally left-handed. So I
Okay.
write with my left. I eat with my left hand. I do everything with my left hand. But when I was taught to play basketball, I always shot with my right hand for some reason. I never know why. I never kind of understand why I did that, but I would always just shoot with my right hand. So when I'm playing, I'm always kind of looking to go left, and it's actually kind of predictable a little bit, because I've talked with my coaches about this, and something that I've also talked with Coach May about is kind of balancing it out, because I do go left a lot. But I can't also finish with my right hand. But I do prefer to go left. And my overall game, I'd say one thing that I'm definitely trying to work on is becoming a more versatile player. More of a modern big man, being able to step out and shoot it, like you said. But being able to start the break with a couple of dribbles and outlet the ball, being able to play on the perimeter, working dribble handoffs and pitches and things like that. That's something that I would definitely say that I'm looking to improve on. And then defensively, I would say, I think I need to work on my timing better when it comes to blocking shots. I feel like in transition, if I'm going for a chase down or something like that, I feel like I'm really good with that. But when it comes to like coming over and stepping in to help, I feel like I sometimes miss times blocks or stuff like that. So I would definitely say those are some things that I need to work on.
On the recruiting trail, when Coach Davis, you told me one of the times we talked that he was offering constructive criticism. I think you said it earlier. How do you receive that the first time? Because like for people who don't know, recruiting is like coaches want to tell you everything you want to hear. They want to tell you that James Brown is the greatest player of all time, that he's going to come in, he's going to
Never
get
lost.
25 shots. Yeah, he's going to get 25 shots a game. He can hit from 3, he can hit from 2, he can hit from half court, he can do it all. So when Hubert Davis is like, you might need to work on this particular thing. How'd you receive it that first time?
I appreciated it because my dad has put me in a lot of different coaching situations, and even him himself, he's a brutally honest person. He's always taught me, take things on the chin and to listen and try to improve yourself. So when Coach Davis told me what he thought about different parts about my game, the first thing I kind of reacted was, man, like, he's really watching and he's really paying attention, and he's trying to help me become better. So I was really appreciative of it because in the recruiting game, it's a business, so there are a lot of people who are gonna tell you everything you want to hear, and kind of tell you everything that you want to hear and you want to know, but in reality it's not really life. So I really appreciated that he was able to be honest with me, and that shows that he's trying to help me become a better player and a better person.
And that differentiated UNC for you. Is that fair?
Yeah, it is. That's extremely fair to say. That's definitely something where I was like where it was fair to see.
So obviously there was a big announcement on Monday for UNC. I was bothering you trying to get information on it over the weekend, asking everyone I could. But now that Ian Jackson is committed to UNC, kind of what are your thoughts on that? And did you see it coming?
I didn't see it coming. When I found out that he was going on an official visit, I was like, okay. I was like, all right, that's good. People usually don't go on official visits midway through the season if they're not really interested in going to a school. But being on social media and looking at different sites, I'd always see, Kentucky 100%, Kentucky 100%, blah blah blah. But seeing that he's coming to North Carolina, I'm extremely happy about it. I've met Ian a couple of times at different USA camps and Pangos camps and stuff like that. So he's a really cool dude to be around. I'm really excited to play with him. I love his game. I love how he plays in transition, and I love how he's able to knock down open shots and how he can get downhill. He can do a little bit of everything. So I'm really excited to be able to play with him. I think our games can really help each other.
Ian Jackson, when he was the most recent player to commit, but in your class right now, it's four players with Elliot Cadeau, who I know you just played against a few weeks ago, but also Drake Powell. Were you able to play against him at all in the 16 and under circuit? Drake playing for CP3, and what are your thoughts on the class overall?
I never did get a chance to play against Drake, but my thoughts on the class overall is I think we have a chance to be something really, really special, and I think we have a chance to kind of add to the greatness of North Carolina basketball. You're getting 4 really good players, 4 players that are going to play hard, 4 players that are going to do whatever it takes to win. And when you get stuff like that with a coach like Coach Davis and a coaching staff like North Carolina has, there's nothing but greatness ahead of it. So I'm really excited to get down to North Carolina, and I'm really excited for the things that this class could have in store.
James, I want to ask you, you said you haven't had a chance, sorry, Sherrell, you said you haven't had a chance you didn't get a chance to watch the NC State game. Obviously, you've got your own season going on. Have you had a chance to see many UNC games? And if so, just what's your vibe around the roster and around the way the team's playing right now?
I have had a chance to watch a good amount of North Carolina games. I know that's one thing that me and my family always try to do, is look to see. That's one thing I'm always asking Coach May is when you guys play again, what time you guys play, what channel is it going to be on, things like that. But I'm really liking how the team kind of started off a little slow. I think it was the PK80 tournament that they went into and dropped a couple games. And I know a lot of people were talking on social media about, overrated, blah, 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 not that good. But, I kind of talked to Coach Man. I was like, man, you guys will be fine. Every team, kind of with my high school team, every team, has those slow starts or they get into a groove or, losing a couple games. But I'm glad that they're starting to pick it up. They're on a 4 or 5 game win streak right now, I believe. So it's good to see that they're being successful, and I think they're gonna shock a lot of people when it comes to the tournament and when it gets down to it, because of the slow start. But I'm not worried. I know they've got a great team, they've got a great roster, and I'm excited to see what they'll do later down in the season.
Yeah, James, again, you are a pro at this. I don't know if anyone's told you that, but you are really, really good at it and you have a future in it. So we should talk off air. But on a serious note, you mentioned social media a few times. All of us are older, kind of fully formed, so to speak. And, it is what it is. But for you all and people your age, social media is a huge deal, Instagram and TikTok and Twitter and all those things. How have you handled like the criticism that comes with being, one of the best players in the country, that comes with playing in a huge city like Chicago, that now comes with being a commitment to UNC? Like, how do you process all that?
I really try not to pay attention to it. I know that's a lot easier said than done. Because I am a person that I am on my phone a lot. I will admit that, and that's something that I am trying to work on. I've been talking with my dad about that a lot, being on my phone so much. But really try to not pay attention to it. There are always going to be people that have some negative to say. So really just trying not to pay attention to it and kind of just stick to myself. And I know what I can do, and I know. I know that I feel like I'm a pretty talented player, and I feel like I'm pretty good. So just kind of sticking to that and kind of trying to have confidence in myself has been the big thing, to kind of just not pay attention to it.
I wanna jump in and just ask you two kind of different questions. One of them focusing on Chicago hoops. I lived there for about 5 years and got to watch a lot of Chicago basketball. I think a lot of people have seen Hoop Dreams way back in the 90s, but how is it for you, playing at St. Rita, have produced a lot of well-known players, but I know you also have a pretty big commute as well. So what's it like just playing in one of the meccas of high school hoops, but also having a lot of responsibility with that, whether it's the commuting, living up to expectations, watching some great players that have come before you. What's it like playing high school in Chicago?
It's extremely difficult. I won't lie. Chicago basketball it's got some of the best basketball in the country. I think one thing that definitely separates Chicago basketball from basketball across the country is the type of toughness that you have to play. Playing against people that they're gonna let you feel it for all, 32 minutes of a game. So that takes a certain type of toughness. It's extremely physical. Not a lot of fouls called, but it's extremely physical. And it takes a different type of mindset to play in Chicago. You really have to that toughness that toughness thing. It really is something that you have to have when you play. Talking about the commute part, that's something that's not easy either. Getting up around 5:45, 6 in the morning every day. And then driving all the way down, having dropped off in about Lamont, and then being picked up by the St. Rita bus, and making that hour drive every single day. That's something that's not easy also, but it's something that I feel like has built up character for me and kind of helped me, because in college, there are going to be early mornings and stuff like that. So I feel like that's something that's really prepared me for college.
Didn't you say that you had like the exact times? It's like you have to be at the bus at 6:30, 6 a.m. and you get home at exactly 8:39 or something like that. What were the exact numbers?
So I'll wake up about 5:45 somewhere. Sometimes I get up at 5:45. Sometimes my mom or my dad might be like, "Yo, you overslept. It's 6 o'clock. Let's go." But so about in that 5:45 to 6 areas when I'm waking up, and then we're leaving the house about 6:20, 6:25 ish, and the bus stop is probably about 20-25 minutes away, so we're getting there about 6:50. And then I'm taking the bus to St. Rita, which we usually get there about 8 o'clock, 8:10, and then go through a whole school day, get out of practice around 5:45, 6. And then I'm taking the bus all the way back to when I usually get back to Lamont, where my dad will pick me up around 7:30. And then I usually get home about 8:15 on some nights.
Pass. Not interested. I mean, I respect the commitment. I really do, but that's my brain would not have been wired to handle that sort of commitment. Of course, I also, wasn't 6'9" and extremely gifted at basketball. So maybe that's a different frame. Sean, you got anything else for James?
Yeah, I got one last question. I was watching one of your games earlier this week against De La Salle, which you guys won. It was a game, at least early on, where you weren't getting a lot of touches, but there was one play that actually jumped out, and it kind of goes to what you were saying earlier about being with your teammates, and one of your guards, I forget who it was, but they got a steal first or second quarter, and they were going up for a dunk. You started sprinting, you got to about midcourt. As soon as they went up for the dunk, you started jumping in the air just like you were about to dunk right with them. And I actually rewound it to watch it again, but it was really just showing kind of how in tune you were and happy you were for that moment for your teammates. But how is it, just playing, I guess being an unselfish player and playing for a group instead of just playing for yourself?
That's something that I feel like I pride myself on is being a team player, and it's a dunk can do so many things in a game. It's so much more than 2 points. That's something that my dad has been telling me for a while. And I guess to go back a little bit. So the player that actually stole the ball is Melvin Bell. He's a sophomore. And this summer he had a really bad knee injury. So it kind of caused his recovery and his time to come back. It's been a long, hard road for him to get back. So especially in that moment, being able to see him kind of go up to it for a dunk, and I don't know if you guys have seen him play, but his freshman year, Melvin was really special. So to kind of see everything that he's gone through over the past couple of months and to be able to see him get that dunk is something that definitely has caused a lot of excitement for me and my team. But going back to the question, that's something that I definitely try to pride myself on is, having a good attitude and being a good team player. And even if it's not my night scoring or if it's not my night getting the ball, just still, just trying to be positive and be a leader. Cause the overall outcome that everybody wants is to win. So yeah.
All right, James. We've gotten through the hard part of the show. Now we're really going to get into the meat and potatoes and the stuff that everybody's really here to learn about you. It's going to be kind of some rapid fire, short answer type questions, but I'm going to throw these at you, and I want you to just respond to them without thinking. All right?
Okay.
All right. First one: favorite Jordans.
11 or ones.
Okay. Because again, Carolina's a Jordan school, which I know you've had your photos made in front of the wall. That's an important thing that you got to go ahead and get your arms around. All right, what are you listening to right now?
A lot of Lil Durk. I listen to a lot of Lil Durk. That's probably my favorite artist.
All right, Cubs or Sox?
Sox.
Okay, South Side. All right, Chicago style pizza or Chicago beef sandwich?
That's a tough one. If it's pizza, I'll go for Lumo. I'll say Chicago. I'll go Lumo Natti's. But if it's a beef sandwich, it has to be from Portillo's.
All right.
The pizza isn't pizza. It's not pizza.
Had plenty of those before.
See, I told you this is the real stuff that we're here to talk about. This is the important stuff.
If you have to eat it with a fork, it's not pizza.
Don't be a hater, Sherrell.
All right, James. Keep in mind this is going to really affect your college career on how you answer this next question.
Okay.
What are your thoughts on sweet tea?
I like sweet tea. No, I like sweet tea. Sweet tea, it's not bad. I prefer it with a little bit of lemonade though, kind of like a little Arnold Palmer.
Okay, that's not a bad answer. It's a lot of times people make the mistake and kind of they'll downplay sweet tea, or they'll try to act as if it has no value. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, when you move down here, it will change your life.
Okay.
So that's an important thing to remember. Favorite UNC player of all time? You cited Hansborough a little bit. You cited some of the guys that have come from the Midwest, but who's your favorite Carolina player of all time?
So if you would have asked me this question about a month ago, I probably would have said Vince Carter. But somebody that I'm really starting to like and kind of model my game after is definitely Armando. Seeing the way that he broke the rebounding record last night and the double-double record is something that's extremely amazing. So I guess I'll kind of go. I guess you could throw Michael Jordan in there too. There are a lot of great UNC players to choose from. So I'll say Armando and MJ.
There's a little bit of a tie with Chicago and MJ. I don't know if you heard about it, but listen. All right, last question. We're gonna let you get out of here. What's the one thing that you want listeners and viewers of this show, or Carolina fans in general, to expect from you when you put on the jersey?
I would say that you're going to get somebody that's going to go out there every single night and try and help the team win. Somebody's going to go out there and play as hard as possible, and somebody's going to go out there and do, and just kind of lay it all out there on the line for those 40 minutes or however long a college game is. And somebody that's really invested in North Carolina on and off the court, and somebody that just wants to see North Carolina be great.
Man, from your lips to God's ears, I'm sure the folks listening and watching the show are going to absolutely gobble that up. James, we appreciate it, man. You've been a real pleasure to talk to, and I know Sherrell hinted at it a second ago, but I'm a little worried because at least in 4 years you're going to be coming for our jobs. So I want to make sure that I want to make sure you have as long of a basketball career as you can, so that we can keep doing this, and you can kind of keep taking our jobs in the back burner for a little bit. But you've been great, man. Thanks for making time for us. Give your parents a shout out for helping to organize this, and we hope nothing but the best for you as the season wraps up for you and St. Rita's, and then hopefully we'll talk to you sometime in the very near future.
Yeah, man. Of course. Thank you. I appreciate you guys for having me, and thank you. This has been great. Thank you.
All right, y'all. That's James Brown, a recent addition to the 24 class for Hubert Davis and staff, joining us live from just outside of Chicago, Illinois, on this edition of the Coast to Coast podcast. But we're going to put a bow on this for James, for Sherrell, for Sean Moran. Shout out to Johnny T-Shirt for sponsoring the show. Shout out to John Siegley for producing, for all you guys for being a part of it, for watching, for listening. Don't forget, rate, review us. Give us a good rating. We haven't seen any good ratings in a while. We haven't seen any ratings in a while. We know you guys love the show, so make sure you drop us a 5-star in there and give us a review. We appreciate it. I am just Joey Powell. We appreciate you being a part of the show. We will catch you next time on the Coast to Coast podcast here on InsideCarolina.com. Talk to you later.